SEC had an opportunity to tell these trading platforms, hey, we don't think this is not a security, don't list it, and it did not do so.
I mean, putting Ripple aside for a second, doesn't this seem like kind of a larger thing that we hear about a lot, which is like a communication problem between the SEC and basically everyone else?
Hey guys, welcome to another Future Trend Today video. As I'm sure you guys have likely checked my previous video out, today we'll be discussing the findings, or at least all the news releases that essentially bombarded our timelines all last week, as clearly the month of March has been full of action. We had responses to the SEC amendment from Ripple. We also had a few tweets from Ripple, as well as Stuart Elderati, the general counsel for Ripple, as well as the CEO Brad Garlinghouse's responses and motion to dismiss. But before we go into that, we might as well just start off this video with a win. The last win of the week, last week, which was essentially the court throwing out Tetragon's case against Ripple. Ripple made a press release on the matter, denying Tetragon's request for preliminary injunction. And long story short, they state here, let's just call Tetragon's lawsuit what it is, an opportunistic move to take advantage of the SEC's allegations. To add insult to injury for Tetragon, the SEC came out last week also stating that they hadn't determined XRP was a security to begin with. Hence my very nice thumbnail today. But on top of that, it just goes to show that Ripple may very well be on the right side of history, as obviously right now they have a very solid legal team on their side, representing not only their company, but also their executives, Chris Larson and Brad Garlinghouse. And at this rate, this was a win to take to the bank on Friday, as this was released then. I'll link this in the description below for your guys' review if you'd like to take a look at it as well. To add to the list for today's video, I also looked at this release by CoinDesk. And they stated here that the crypto exchanges discussed XRP status with the SEC ahead of listings, Ripple says. So in Ripple's response to the SEC's amendment, they also stated that a few exchanges had approached the SEC for guidance on whether it was good or not to list XRP on their exchanges. And the SEC didn't give anything formal. They didn't have any formal responses to these exchanges. And I'll just go ahead and play this video.
To the amended SEC complaint last night. A quick timeline. The SEC filed its original complaint at the end of December. Ripple filed its response at the end of January. The SEC then filed an amended complaint last month with a few additional details and some more quotes, I believe, from various reports that Ripple supposedly had access to or saw. So Ripple responded to that last night. And I guess the biggest change to me was it added a couple lines near the end in the filing saying several crypto trading platforms had actually interacted with the SEC about listing XRP, the cryptocurrency at the heart of this particular action. And the exchanges were not told that the SEC was looking at XRP as a security, according to Ripple. So they're now saying that the SEC had an opportunity to tell these trading platforms, hey, we don't think this is not a security, don't list it, and it did not do so.
I mean, putting Ripple aside for a second, doesn't this seem like kind of a larger thing that we hear about a lot, which is like a communication problem between the SEC and basically everyone else?
Yeah, that's definitely been a very common complaint that there's no clear binding guidance that says XYZ is for sure a security and this other thing is not. And Ripple even kind of pointed to that in its filing. That's been a central part of its defense, really. But they referenced a speech by former SEC Director of Corporate Finance, Bill Hinman, from 2018, where Hinman said, in my view, Ether does not look like a security. And many entities looked at that and said, okay, well, so if, we make things that look like Ether, does that mean it's also not a security? But again, that was never formal guidance. That was never really, that wasn't codified anywhere. So it's still kind of, trying to figure it out as you go along without the security or comfort of that, Brightline's guidance.
Yeah. So you guys can make your own decisions You guys can make your own conclusions after watching that, but from my perspective, it's looking really good for XRP right now. It's looking really good for Ripple. Not necessarily getting overly emotional about it. I think it's worth everyone's discretion to do a little bit more research and come to a certain level of conviction before investing anyway, as this is not financial advice to begin with. I just thought this was interesting to share. Moving forward, we also had Stuart Eldoradi's tweet from last week as well. Last Thursday stated that Ripple's response to the SEC, you could definitely find that linked in my description as well. It's a fairly detailed document, but worth a read, as it pretty much just states everything in detail if you're looking to have these kind of records on your side as well. I mean, it's definitely something to discuss with your friends and family that are looking for any sort of updates on the actual case itself. It is something that's public record, so you can definitely take a look at it there. We also had another tweet from our man Brad. His was a Wednesday tweet that stated he had his legal team pretty much file on his behalf, indicating his intent to file for a motion to dismiss in response to the SEC's amended complaint against him. Simply put, the SEC's allegations are regulatory overreach, and the letter speaks for itself. I took a look at the letter. It was honestly a very great sigh of relief, and ultimately, it really comes down to what Judge Torres will rule. Because I mean, like I said, the first week of March was a lot of action. There's definitely a lot to condense and to respond to, so we will all be in high anticipation of what kind of press releases will be coming up in this next 7 days here. But yeah, fairly action-packed first week, and to add the cherry on the top, we also got some news that the XRP ledger was being considered by certain central banks for private ledger transactions. In a press release by Ripple, also on Wednesday last week, they released here stating, Ripple pilots a private ledger for central banks launching CBDCs. What I found interesting was the statement right here. Transactions on the CBDC private ledger are verified by the same consensus protocol used by the XRP ledger, which is far less energy intensive and therefore less expensive and 61,000 times more efficient than public blockchains that leverage proof of work. I believe an example of proof of work is Ethereum. The Ethereum blockchain, one could say, is 61 times less efficient than the XRP ledger. I guess that's what they're trying to say here, and I believe that's part of the reason why we all have such great convictions when it comes to XRP and their technology over at Ripple. In addition to leveraging the XRP ledger technology, the CBDC private ledger is also supported by RippleNet technologies and the Interledger suite of protocols to enable ultra-high throughput use cases such as micropayments. Long story short, there's tons of information you can find in my description below regarding the origins or thought processes of individuals like Christine Lagarde and her relationship with Ripple. Long story short, it's my speculation that Ripple has already everything in place with central banks when it comes to blockchain infrastructure and technology. Similar to RippleNet, they essentially most likely partnered with other companies to build those kinds of rails for central banks to run their central bank digital currencies on. And this is just a plain example of that. And from my perspective, Ripple pretty much comes out here the week they release all the responses to the SEC, Brad Garlinghouse's motion to dismiss. They're all very confident cards to play in a span of 4 days. So at this rate, it may very well mean that there may have been some sort of a deal struck between Ripple and SEC, or maybe, there has been a conclusion on the case that hasn't necessarily been green lighted to release to the general public. So only time will tell, but at this rate, such cards aren't necessarily played if one isn't confident that they will essentially win. Unless it's a desperate Hail Mary where they're just trying to push a decision that is more so in their favor. And maybe, such releases would pressure Judge Torres to rule in their favor. But we'll leave it at that. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. if you wouldn't mind subscribing, hitting that like button, as well as that notification bell for any time that I post any videos. I'm doing my best to manage my time here at home with work and family life in general, as I'm sure all of us are trying our best to do with this new way of life we're all trying to get accustomed to. But again, feel free to hit me on Twitter if you have any questions. I'm also trying to grow my channel over there, so don't forget to follow me on Twitter. As I'd like to think I put out some very interesting thought processes, and also share anything that I find within the cryptocurrency space, or trends that are connected to new technology in general. So once more, thanks so much for following, thanks so much for listening, and don't forget to be mindful of the trends. Talk to you guys soon.